House prosecutors expressed opposition to the proposed plan to finish the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte in just 19 days. According to Congressman Gutierrez, it's not possible to present all pieces of evidence within 2 days or compress 7 articles of impeachment into just 2. Senate Majority Leader Francis Tolentino made the recommendation to start the proceedings on June 11 and come up with a judgment or decision on June 30, which also marks the last day of the 19th Congress.
Personally, I don't think it would be possible on our part to just consolidate it into 2 articles. That would be a betrayal of the full articles of impeachment that we have filed. We're not ready yet to say how much time we need, but definitely 2 days will not be enough.
Gutierrez's fellow lawmakers in the lower chamber echoed his sentiment. They insist the impeachment trial isn't part of the legislative functions of the Senate, so it can definitely cross into the 20th Congress. Recall that those who recommended the dismissal of the trial cited the constitutional prohibition of carrying over legislative agenda from one Congress to the next.
Hindi siya bound by the legislative calendar. We are still standing on that, na hindi siya dapat magpatali doon sa usapin na hanggang June 30 lang.
Alam natin pag minadali, kulang yung oras sa dami ng mga ebidensya na ipipresenta. So again, sana ma-realize nila na it's always the Constitution over personal ambition.
And helping us make sense of what transpired today and what is still transpiring at the Senate, all those back and forth about the legalities of an impeachment trial, we have Paolo Tamase, Assistant Professor at the University of the Philippines College of Law. Good evening to you, Prof, and welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening to your viewers.
Well, first of all, the resolution filed by Senator Robin Padilla while the debate was ongoing on whether the Senate should vote on what Senator Coco Pimentel and Senator Ontiveros presented to the floor, on the floor.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the resolution that went around last Wednesday or Tuesday last week, which really triggered this wave of responses from law schools and law faculty about these supposed dangers with continuing the trial. They're not credible threats to constitutional order that the trial can proceed despite the crossing over from the 19th to the 20th Congress. And so I think we can refer to those statements that the law faculties have made in relation to that new resolution.
So it kind of justifies the call because ngayon di na scrap of paper, hindi na pwedeng sabihin ni Senate President Chis Escudero na scrap of paper lang yan. It's a resolution filed before the Senate.
Yes, and I think it's why the law schools and academic institutions really put their foot down when it came to that proposed dismissal de facto or functional dismissal. They couldn't see any basis for it in the Constitution. And I think if you prioritize accountability, it made a lot more sense to interpret these provisions in favor of continuing to the next Congress.
But Senate President Chis Escudero in a press conference and on the Senate floor explained why they're being attacked when similar incidents happened in previous impeachment trials. The Senate was also on recess. They went on recess and just resumed after. And yet, hindi naman daw sila tinuligsa ng ganito. They're really, taking it hard.
Yeah, I did notice that. I think you tie that with the comment of Senator Alan Cayetano, who seems to have really bristled at the academic criticism of this. But on the part of the law schools and the law faculty who write those statements and really write it from a very deep study of the Constitution, it's fealty to the truth. It's just how we really understand the Constitution as neutrally read, without our jobs don't depend on us reading it one way or the other. So we just have to read it as it says. Now,
Walang
has to be,
personalan, in other words. But
yeah,
they did take
right.
it personally, right? They were bristling at the
It
criticism.
seems, yeah, it seems, but it's a good reminder also for the Senate that it's not only just the vice president who is accountable in these proceedings. Sila mismo, right? May pananagutan sila sa mamamayan at sa constituents nila. We are voters like the rest of our fellow citizens. But on the particular points that they raised, I think the reason why there was no complaints or there were no complaints about the past impeachment processes was because this one is different. I think we're making false equivalencies between the
Okay.
Corona and the Estrada impeachments in this one. Those did not start after a 4 month delay. And a delay that really, there is a delay that was not only 4 months, but a delay that was further delayed because it was supposed to start on June 2. It did not face the same objections from senators about the trial crossing over to the next Congress. The circumstances of this one are different.
Also, if I may add, why didn't you Dow criticize the House as well? They dragged their feet as well because other impeachment complaints were not referred to the Justice Committee. Bakit hindi kayo galit sa kanila? It
Look,
seems a bit petty, but it's an oft-repeated observation by the Senate President.
I get that. But I think you need to compare the role of the Senate and the role of the House. The role of the House when it comes to impeachments is more discretionary than the Senate's role. So, the House gets to say whether an impeachment complaint is sufficient in form, whether it's sufficient in substance, whether they believe that these offenses really did happen. The Senate's duty is to try and decide. It's a
But
much narrower duty that's easier to enforce,
But
I
it
think.
could be tactical too, perhaps they are not ready to, they're still shoring up political support, but there's discretion there. It's
Yeah,
looser.
definitely a lot more discretion than what's given to the Senate. Now, whether the vice president is guilty or not guilty is absolutely up to the Senate to decide. But whether they should proceed to trial and get to that point of decision making is not discretionary upon them based on a fair reading of the Constitution.